Okay, so you're thinking about becoming an Airbnb host.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
You've sent us some info on Airbnb's AirCover program, and we're going to deep dive into that today
Absolutely.
and help you understand what it means for you as a host.
Yeah, because while AirCover sounds like a pretty comprehensive safety net,
Right.
the reality is a bit more nuanced. So today we're going to unpack exactly what it covers,
Yeah.
where the gaps are, and what you can do to truly protect yourself as a host.
Yeah. And let's face it,
Hmm.
when it comes to protecting your property and yourself, you don't want any surprises, right?
No.
So first things first is your existing homeowner's insurance enough?
Yeah, that's a great starting point.
Okay.
A lot of people just assume their homeowner's policy will cover them for Airbnb hosting, but that's not always the case.
Right.
In fact, many standard policies specifically exclude coverage for business activities.
Okay.
And that's how most insurance companies see short-term rentals.
So even if it's just a spare room or a guest house,
Huh.
it's considered a business.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that means if a guest causes damage that goes beyond normal wear and tear,
Right.
or if someone gets injured, your homeowner's insurance could potentially deny the claim.
Okay, that's a little unnerving.
Yeah.
So let's talk about AirCover. It's advertised as providing up to $3 million in coverage,
Right.
which sounds like a lot.
It does.
Is that a realistic number in terms of actual rebuilding costs?
Well-
or are there limits that we should be aware of?
$3 million is definitely a substantial amount.
Right.
But it's essential to understand the specifics.
Okay.
For example, while AirCover does cover damage caused by guests,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't cover things like damage from natural disasters, infestations, or normal wear and tear.
Okay.
And there are often limits on coverage for certain categories like jewelry or artwork.
So it's not a blanket $3 million for
Right.
anything and everything.
Right. And, a lot of hosts are surprised to learn that AirCover doesn't cover legal expenses if, let's say, a guest refuses to leave and you need to evict them.
Oh, that sounds like a real headache.
Yeah.
And speaking of headaches, what about lost income if you have to cancel bookings due to guest damage?
Right.
Does AirCover help with that?
Yes. They do have income loss coverage
Okay.
for situations where you need to cancel confirmed bookings because of damage caused by a guest.
But what if I need to cancel for another reason?
Yeah.
Like a pipe bursts or there's a major storm?
Unfortunately, AirCover only applies to cancellations specifically due to guest-caused damage.
Okay.
So if you have to cancel for reasons outside your control,
Right.
you wouldn't be covered for that lost income.
All right. So we're starting to see a pattern here.
Mm-hmm.
AirCover has its limitations.
Yeah, it does.
What about liability coverage?
Okay.
If a guest trips, falls, and decides to sue, am I covered?
AirCover does include liability insurance for guest injuries,
Okay.
but it's crucial to understand that this coverage may not apply
Right.
if the injury was a result of negligence on your part.
So if I haven't properly maintained the property or haven't addressed a known safety hazard,
Right.
I could be on the hook.
Exactly. Maintaining a safe and well-maintained property is key.
Got it.
You can't simply rely on AirCover to bail you out if you haven't taken the necessary steps to prevent accidents.
Right.
In fact, some hosts have found that claims are denied if they haven't met basic safety standards.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's not just about having insurance. It's also about being a responsible host and proactively minimizing risks.
Absolutely. And, being proactive can also help you avoid those situations where you might need to file a claim in the first place.
Okay, before we move on, let's recap the components of AirCover that we've discussed so far.
Okay.
We've got damage protection, income loss coverage, and liability coverage. Anything else we should know about?
There's one more component, deep cleaning protection. This covers the cost of unexpected cleaning if a guest leaves your property in a truly unacceptable state.
So like if they throw a wild party and leave the place a disaster zone.
Exactly. Or if they sneak in a pet and it sheds everywhere.
Oh, gosh.
Or worse,
Yeah.
AirCover might cover the cost of professional cleaning in those situations.
Okay.
But remember, it's for unexpected situations, not just because a guest didn't do the dishes.
Right. So again, it comes back to understanding the nuances and limitations.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier that some hosts have been surprised to find their AirCover claims denied.
Yes.
Do you have any specific examples that illustrate these potential pitfalls?
Sure. One common issue arises when a host hasn't documented the condition of their property before a guest arrives.
Okay.
If you can't prove that the damage was caused by the guest, your claim might be rejected.
So before and after photos are crucial.
Absolutely. Detailed photos and descriptions of your property's condition can make all the difference if you need to file a claim.
Okay, good to know. What other situations have you seen where air cover hasn't quite lived up to expectations?
Well, another example is when a host tries to claim for damage that occurred gradually over time, like mold or water damage.
Hmm.
AirCover is designed to cover sudden and accidental damage caused by guests, not ongoing maintenance issues.
So if it's something that's been developing slowly,
Mm,
it's likely not going to be covered.
right, and that's why it's so important to understand the difference between normal wear and tear and damage caused by a guest. And it brings us back to
Yeah.
the importance of having that open communication with guests,
Right.
making sure they understand the house rules, and treating your property with respect can go a long way in preventing issues.
Yeah, it sounds like communication is a key part of being a successful and protected host.
It is.
But even with the best communication, things can still happen.
Right.
So let's talk about what hosts can do to ensure they have the right coverage in place beyond air cover.
Absolutely, your cover is a great starting point.
Oh,
But it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Every property and every host is different.
right.
The first step is to really assess your individual needs and risks.
Okay. How do we go about doing that?
Start by thinking about the specifics of your property.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have high-value items that need extra coverage?
Okay.
Is your property located in an area prone to certain natural disasters?
Okay.
Do you have any unique features like a pool or hot tub
Right.
that might increase liability risks?
That's all about identifying those potential vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And once you've identified those potential gaps in air cover,
Yeah.
you can start looking into specialized short-term rental insurance policies.
What are some key things that these specialized policies might cover that air cover doesn't?
Great question. Some common areas where hosts might need additional coverage include
Yep.
things like protection against squatters,
Uh-huh.
broader coverage for lost income, and coverage for specific natural disasters or events that are common in your area.
So if I live in an area prone to wildfires or hurricanes, I would want to make sure my insurance specifically covers those events.
Precisely. And remember, insurance companies are businesses too.
Right.
They evaluate risk.
Yeah.
So being upfront about how you're using your property for short-term rentals is crucial.
Right.
Trying to hide it or hoping your standard homeowner's policy will cover it could backfire if you ever need to file a claim.
Honesty is the best policy, as they say.
Absolutely. And, another thing that hosts often overlook is the importance of having proper documentation in place.
What kind of documentation are we talking about?
Things like a detailed rental agreement that clearly outlines guest responsibilities and house rules,
Okay.
a comprehensive inventory of your property and its contents, and a system for documenting communication with guests.
So if a guest claims they didn't break something, I have proof that it was in good condition before they arrived.
Right. And if there's a dispute about whether a guest violated a house rule, you have a record of that communication.
It's like having a paper trail to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Might seem like overkill, but trust me, having that documentation can save you a lot of headaches down the road.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about protecting yourself financially,
Mm-hmm.
but hosting also comes with emotional considerations, right?
Absolutely. Opening your home to strangers can be nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You're sharing your personal space with people you don't know,
Right.
and that can definitely create some anxiety.
So what advice would you give to new hosts who might be feeling apprehensive about that aspect?
One of the best ways to mitigate those anxieties is through guest screening.
Okay.
Don't just accept the first booking that comes along.
Right.
Take the time to read guest reviews, look at their profiles, and maybe even have a brief phone or video chat with them before confirming the booking.
So it's about getting a feel for who these people are before they walk through your door.
Exactly. And it goes back to communication.
Yeah.
Be upfront about your expectations and house rules.
Okay.
If something makes you uncomfortable, don't be afraid to say no to a booking.
It's your home, after all. You have the right to feel comfortable and secure.
Exactly. And another thing that can help ease those anxieties is connecting with other hosts.
Okay.
There's a huge community of Airbnb hosts out there who have been through it all,
Right.
sharing tips, advice, and even just commiserating with others who understand the unique joys and challenges of hosting can make a world of difference.
It's like having a support system to navigate the ups and downs of hosting.
Precisely. And those experienced hosts can be a wealth of information.
Yeah.
They can tell you which insurance companies they recommend, what red flags to look for when screening guests, and how to handle tricky situations that might arise.
Speaking of tricky situations, the video mentions a follow-up
Yes.
on how to use AirCover in real-life scenarios, including how to file a claim.
Huh?
Can you give us a preview of what to expect?
Sure, it will cover things like
Mm.
what kind of documentation you'll need,
Mm-hmm.
the steps involved in filing a claim, and what to do if your claim is denied.
Oh, that sounds really helpful because even if you have the best insurance in the world, it doesn't do much good if you don't know how to use it effectively.
Couldn't agree more. It's all about being prepared and knowing your rights.
So to wrap things up, it seems like the key takeaway here is that while AirCover is a good starting point, it's not a substitute for doing your research, understanding your specific needs, and securing the right insurance coverage to protect yourself and your property.
Absolutely. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more you know about the potential risks and how to mitigate them, the more confident and successful you'll be as an Airbnb host.
Yeah. It's like that old saying, forewarned is forearmed.
Exactly. And one of the things I find fascinating about this whole topic of Airbnb hosting
Yeah.
is that it's not just about insurance and logistics.
Yeah.
It's also about creating a positive and memorable experience for your guests.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in the nuts and bolts of protecting yourself,
Hmm.
but ultimately you want your guests to have a great time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to
Yeah.
those little touches that make people feel welcome and comfortable in your space.
Like leaving a welcome basket with local snacks or providing personalized recommendations for things to do in the area.
Exactly. Those small gestures can make a big difference in how guests perceive their stay.
And I think those personal touches can also help build trust and rapport with guests,
Yeah,
which can actually reduce the likelihood of problems arising in the first place.
I completely agree. When guests feel like they're being treated well and that you genuinely care about their experience,
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to respect your property and follow the house rules.
It's a win-win situation. You create a more enjoyable experience for your guests,
Right.
and you reduce your own risk as a host.
Precisely. And that's what makes Airbnb hosting so interesting.
Yeah.
It's a blend of hospitality, business savvy, and risk management.
It's like a little microcosm of entrepreneurship.
I like that. And, for anyone out there who's thinking about dipping their toes into the world of Airbnb hosting, my advice would be to jump in, but do your homework first.
Don't just dive in headfirst without understanding the potential risks and rewards.
Exactly. Educate yourself about the legalities, the insurance options, and the best practices for hosting.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with other hosts, learn from their experiences, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
It's all about being prepared and informed, and with the right approach, Airbnb hosting can be a truly rewarding experience, both financially and personally.
Couldn't agree more. It's a chance to meet interesting people from all over the world, share your space, and maybe even earn some extra income.
Yeah.
What's not to love?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about the ins and outs of AirCover, the importance of securing additional insurance coverage, the value of clear communication, and the emotional considerations of hosting. Hopefully, this deep dive has provided you with the knowledge and confidence to navigate the exciting world of Airbnb hosting.
Absolutely. And remember, hosting is a journey.
Yeah.
There will be ups and downs. But with careful planning, a little bit of savvy, and a dash of hospitality, you can create a truly successful and fulfilling experience for yourself and your guests.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Airbnb host insurance. We'll catch you next time for another insightful exploration of a topic that matters to you.